Welcome to I Finally Get It. This week, we're happy to have Rob Kirkpatrick of Kirkpatrick Brands. In studio today, as always, Dustin Webb, our producer. I'm your host, Jeff Martin. Let's get it.
Well, when am I going to get it is the question. I'm still waiting for it to happen.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a lightning bolt. I will say there are things I'm doing right now that if I knew how they were going right now, I would have done it 5 years ago. I've really been pulled for a long time to sort of be out on my own, to just be myself, to not have to, work up to someone else's sales goal or someone else's marketing goals and really just help people out. You and I have known each other for quite a while, and I feel like that's always been the brand I have strived to be. Is
For sure.
Tell me who you want to talk to. If I can get you in the room, I'm going to get you in the room. And I surround myself with people who I'm willing to do that for. It's not like the offer goes out to everyone, but everyone doesn't get to be in the inner circle. And once you have a good inner circle, the connections you make, they just keep coming back. So I guess that's what I finally get, is really appreciating that life is long, relationships matter, and things eventually come back around and they'll pay you back.
Yeah, that's great. I hope my kids are listening, because we talk about relationships, and it's so crazy important. And I think people underappreciate that today.
And they really do. And I also think that good business advice is also often really good life advice. There's the one thing I have to keep reminding myself, and though I may look great right now, it only happened about 15 minutes ago that I actually took a shower and put on a short and fat shirt to come over here and talk to you. But I was doing yard work this morning. And I know it is the middle of the week. It's a little bit cloudy outside, so it's not super hot. I'm not going to get sunburnt. But it's one of those things in my life that I can't stand to do. Like, I'm not a yard guy. I don't enjoy it. I buy new ferns every single year for the back patio because I kill them every year. So, we just welcomed our 2024 ferns to the back patio.
Nice.
But I find that if I do a little bit every day, then it's not something that kills my Saturday. I don't have the pool to clean and that vine that's bothering me and the front flower beds that have weeds. I find that if I can do like 30 minutes or an hour just here and there, and the physical benefit is just an added benefit. I'm sweating and getting some sun, maybe working on this farmer's tan that I have from the leftover from the wintertime. But if I do a little bit every day, then it never becomes a big project. It never becomes something I have to overcome.
All right, so this is early in the light bulb moment.
Oh, wow.
Right?
That's great.
That is a life lesson that transfers well into a business lesson.
100%.
You gotta chip away at this stuff. We all want to do everything right now.
Yeah. I was sort of thinking about this conversation. I don't know if I was listening to a podcast this morning. I'm kind of inundated with information. My background is in news and media, so I almost always have to have someone talking at me. And it drives my wife crazy because, she wants to have music on in the morning while the kids are having breakfast and everything else. And I'm like, no, I want to listen to there's a podcast I really like called The Daily Presidential Brief.
Oh, wow.
And it's very short, compact, but it's a guy that takes the news from 24 hours before and how he would brief the president. And so it's executive summary. I mean, it's really just basic things, no interpretation, no analysis, just like, here's what this country did. And there's a lot of foreign policy and different things. But I heard something this morning that really stuck with me when I knew we were going to talk. And it's like, easy come, easy go. I think everyone is looking for the light bulb moment. Someone's probably listening to this podcast right now thinking, you know what, Rob and Jeff, they're going to tell me something that's going to change my life today. And that's how the infomercials are. Do this today and tomorrow this will happen. Well, easy come, easy go. We all know it. We've all done Atkins. You lose 20 pounds, but you're miserable. You're angry at everyone else. And then you have a slice of pizza and you gain 20 pounds.
That's right.
It's those long-term changes that you make, whether they work for you in business, they're going to work for you in life. And again, what's the opposite of easy come, easy go? Something you work for a really long time.
Yep.
So whenever maybe you have that day of adversity, something bad happens, everything isn't gone. But it's just a little bump in the road.
That's right.
So I try to live by that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You have a long history in media and all that, but let's talk about what you're doing right now with Kirkpatrick Brands.
So Kirkpatrick Brands, all right, it is my foray into saying, Rob, what can you offer the world? And how can you do it just on your own? How can you work with all sorts of different businesses inside of media, outside of media? I grew up outside of New Orleans. I moved to Lafayette to go to college and then really jumped around. I made kind of a strange move that on paper, I still can't believe I pulled it off. I was working in market 110 in Lafayette, and I moved. My first job out of college was to market 5 in Dallas. And one thing I always tell people is like, don't be afraid to promote the things that you've done, whether they're big or small. I think we're taught to be humble, but don't do that in the job seeking process. Talk about all the things that you've done. So there's a little show. I'm not even sure if they do it anymore in Lafayette, but it's during high school football season after the 10 o'clock news on Fridays called Friday Night Football. And one of my first jobs I had was literally working with stringers. And when I say stringers, I'm talking about head cheerleaders, assistant coaches of the football teams, administration at these high schools. And I would be calling them to get scores because that was the way. You had to call to find out.
The cheerleaders are reporting in.
The cheerleaders would call in, and they were harder to get in touch with if they lost. I'll put it to you that way. But, people were really happy. Sometimes it was a super fan parent who may not even have a kid that goes there, but I'd talk to them and they would love to give KHEC the score. And so I did that. So this one little line about Friday Night Football is in my resume. Okay. Obviously, first resume, so there's not much on there. I had done a lot in radio and some different things, probably more than the average college grad, but I had this one line. I get this interview in Dallas. They actually met me on a Sunday to interview. I mean, it was just a weird circumstance. I get the job. I move up there. And I remember one day saying, like, what did this kid from Louisiana, like not even in the market, that you had to move there, what did it? And he said, well, we needed someone who knew how to write sports on our morning show. And it was just that one little
Friday
thing.
Night Football.
And that's what it was. Friday Night Football was the way to make it happen. So went there, worked for Fox in Dallas, worked at CNN in Atlanta, and then we moved back here and did some radio work, did some digital work, and luckily all those relationships along the way, I learned really early on just to keep them going, because you leave somewhere. And social media does help with that. But the old school communication, the direct text or a phone call, my grandpa, who was a master negotiator, okay, in business, in his personal life, and he taught me really early on, when you move up, when you get promotions, when you get new jobs, always call your supervisors from the past, like the line of them. Know who they were, because they're excited that they maybe had a small part that set you on this path that got you to this thing.
I love that.
And at first I was thinking, these people don't care. I had to quit where they were. I had to give a notice. And so the first time I did it, it was like, these people don't care that I'm moving to Atlanta, kind of to the Disney world of news for me. At that time, it was in 2012. That was what you pushed for. Like, that's where you wanted to work. I called and everyone was so gracious and just so excited to talk to me. Like, wow, you're still that passionate kid when you were, 19 years old, the first radio job I ever had. Those people were excited to hear from me. So I try to remember all those things.
From your grandfather. Just think about it. Think if you're the guy who is getting the phone call. Yeah. And, Rob is telling me, hey, you played a big part in this. And I'm so excited about this. I just want to thank you. People love to hear thank you,
It's a long game. It's a long game. So when you leave, you better make sure that you can walk back into that building anytime you want. And I made sure to, with every job I've left, I've made sure when I'm in town, I can call and say, I want to stop by. I'm a diplomat at heart, so I'm going to bring a king cake or, boudin from Billy's or something. I'm going to show up with something. And just having that knowledge, you sort of earn this reputation as someone who's not trying to trash talk you.
Correct.
I can sniff it out from 10 miles away if I'm interviewing someone and I hear someone trash where they worked before. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we all have bad jobs, we all have bad relationships, but they all teach us something. And so I want to hire someone who is just going to pick up the breadcrumbs along the way that they didn't have before.
Yeah, I love that. I don't want to miss out on the light bulb moment, right?
Is there a limiter on this light bulb here?
No, but you could go for the record today because these are really early.
All right.
So it's the relationship again, you know, and you said your grandfather told you that. One of the things that I noticed is if it's not in your DNA, it can probably come off as fake. And so you might be a little strategic, but you're doing it, you're intentional. Yeah. Is the thing.
Intentional, I think, is the key. I think sometimes strategic could be misconstrued as fake.
It's fake.
Or you're setting it up, or you're doing this for that.
That's right. Yeah. So you're about intentional relationships. Yeah. You could teach a course on that.
Well, you know, and
it's important.
It's little things along the way that I feel like I just did things the way I wanted to do them, not how it necessarily was supposed to be done on paper.
Yep.
And there were things along the way. Nonprofit work is one. You know, we hear about, you know, these kids who are trying to get into college. And so like, that's their motivation. They have to do some nonprofit work to put on their resume, but then the passion, there's a gap there. There's no passion for what they're doing.
Correct.
And so, you know, one thing when I was doing radio, people would ask all the time for you to sit on boards or, different things. And I would always say, like, thank you so much. I'll advise your board, but I can't be on everyone's board, because that's a whole different level of passion and a lot of hours that I didn't have at the time. But then when they needed me to host a 5K or host a gala, support a fundraiser, God forbid, do a live auction. And I tell I'm like, I'm not good at it. I'm not good at the pressure, because, that's usually what a live auction is.
Yeah,
it's
just pressure.
It's loud. It's fast. You have paddles. There's your friend across the room who's trying to beat you for the. I mean, it's just not my thing. The best thing that people could say is when you do those things, someone says, oh my gosh, you're exactly like you are on the radio. And that was one thing that I never understood, because how could I be someone else for 3 hours every day? Like, that is more exhausting than just sitting down and being myself. And I think that's why COVID was really hard for me. Despite the fact of what was going on in the rest of the world, I had to get on the radio for a big span where I was at my house. And so it was 3:00 in the morning when I'm kind of starting prep and everything else. So that means my family is asleep. It is dark outside, and I'm not quite sure the world's not ending. Like, I'm human,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we were waking up day to day like, what's today's adventure going to be? I remember just like watching the White House. Remember the White House press briefings that happened every day? And you'd be like, ugh, what's going to happen today? And you'd see that. And I remember one day I was really having a hard time with it, just having to be the positive voice. And yes, we're bringing in all these experts and everything. And I texted an anchor I worked with in Dallas. He has since retired. His name's Tim Ryan, one of the best guys. And I just said, he was a morning anchor, so he was doing the same thing, except he was on TV. You at least couldn't see my face that I'm pulling my hair out, And he said, Rob, you need to put on the uniform like a police officer does, like a doctor does, like a nurse does. And you just need to fake it. Like, they don't have any other option right now than to be very scared to work in an emergency room when COVID is raging, than to go in and take care of people. So stop thinking about all this extra pressure you're putting on yourself and just put on the uniform. And so I carry that through a lot of things. I mean, I carry that through, being a husband, being a dad, now being a business owner. Guess what? Sometimes I'm driving, to my office high above Rock and Bowl in downtown Lafayette, and I'm thinking, what am I doing? It's just so far out of what I ever did before. I was always working for big companies, supporting big things, big revenue. And I'm sort of looking, I'm like, oh gosh, my revenue is nowhere near this. And then I just put on the business owner uniform and I go throughout my day as a successful business owner should do it. Oh, we went back. We reset the light on that one. Put on the uniform, Jeff.
Put on the uniform.
And luckily, I have a good uniform. This is my uniform that I'm wearing right now, but you have to.
Like you said a little bit earlier, you have to be your authentic self. There's one thing, look, put on the uniform and be you.
Yep. We're our biggest critics. We are our absolute biggest critics because we can see all of the cracks, okay? What we're putting out there, and I'm very clear, even with the consulting that I'm doing, I don't have all the answers, but I have experiences. And so when you sort of change your mindset into everyone just needs to be right about everything, or I need to know all the right answers, the way to really think about it is no, I've seen things that worked and didn't work. And that's why consulting works really well for me now, because I can look at a situation and say, I'll tell you exactly why no one showed up to that event. You weren't clear about the location. There were 10 other things going on that day. You didn't check calendars to make sure you were the only thing. And oh, by the way, no one knows what your business is or what your nonprofit is. And,
correct.
In my world, there's a little bit of a balance I have where I'll steal this from someone who gave a talk I went 2 years ago in Lafayette and said, there are things that pay my bills and things that pay my soul. And the things that pay my soul, see, now I'm just trying to get you to press the light bulb. But the things that pay my soul is really helping nonprofits who have great missions and so much passion, but not the resources to actually do it. And so to go in and say, you know what, you think you need to pay someone $5,000 for a website thing or something when you don't have one. So pay the $99 and get something up. And those little things right there, I think really give people sort of empowerment that nobody else knows what's going on either. That's a big misconception. I'm sure you see it in your world where the assumption is I'm the only one drowning. I'm the only one that doesn't have a team of people handling my social media. Yep. You would be wrong. Even at some of the biggest companies, as you've seen, these massive companies, you just think there's 10,000 employees doing this stuff and it might be 10. And you're really? Tech company that everyone knows and you have this big persona. But again, they're wearing the uniform. That's what they're supposed to look like.
When you launched Kirkpatrick Brands, what has been the biggest discovery? What's the best thing about it? What is the thing you love most?
I really like to be a long-term person in the story of an organization. I don't look at things like, yes, there's a cost for what I do, but I don't really put an end date. It's like, here's what we're going to work on. And I actually had a situation yesterday where, there was a project I finished about 6 months ago. It was a rebrand, and they had a question about some of the elements. I just made a decision a long time ago, like, you're paying me to do this. I'm going to be like Amazon, that I take back anything. Maybe I don't give you a refund, but like, I'm going to help you along in this process. I don't care if it's 2 years down the road, because I'm pretty careful about who I work with. And I'm not just a menu pricing guy. It's sort of like, what do you want to accomplish and what's your budget? Like, how can we do it? So to me, following people to do a rebrand, a lot of times I'm doing all these elements. And if the launch isn't happening, right when I'm done, then that could be like several months down the road once a new website is built, once an app is built and everything else. So to really watch it grow, that's a big part of it. I also think the other part is, I feel like I'm part therapist sometimes to say, you're not the only one who's having this challenge. It's a very common challenge, these sorts of things, you understand.
We're going to get through this.
Yeah, we're going to get through it, and it's going to be okay. Yeah. We're going to be fine. To actually see those things, and then to have someone say, I don't need anyone worshiping me like a god. I mean, if you want to, that's fine. I won't charge extra for that. But I love for someone to say, see, this is Rob. Remember when I was having this issue 2 years ago? He helped me out of it. I have this idea for a book. We'll put it out there, breaking news here, because it's nothing, but it's just an idea. But I kind of live by this giving chances is better than taking chances thing.
Oh, nice.
And,
nice.
To really think about who you helped get a job, if you don't know what they're going to do. And I'm a bad person to set up a blind date. I'll never set up a relationship. But if I think you could do something for a company or you have a specific skill, please tell me what you want. Like, I love friends who call and say, like, do you have a connection here? I know you did something here. And usually it's like, yes, there's someone I still know in there to just say, hey, I have someone who's interested. Because sometimes I forget, I'll be honest. Because I just make it a part of my day-to-day thing, I'm really never looking for a thank you. I hope you're the best person you can be. But to hear someone say, Rob got me my first job in TV, and I don't remember it.
And you forgot about it.
And it's been 20 years. And then to me, I'm like, well, you're still doing it 20 years later. So like, I must have had some good insight. I must have had a good feeling about what you can do. And I just think that's so important. I mean, it all comes back. The famous philosopher Cat Williams on a recent podcast said something about the universe being like an ATM machine. And you need to put things in along the way, because like, you never know when you're going to have to withdraw.
Take it out. Yeah.
And something's you need to have a balance in there. And so I want to say he was asked a question about paying for someone's like Hollywood Walk of Fame star. And they were like, why did you do that? And it was like, I don't really know. Like, I think they were expecting a great story. And he was like, there was a Walk of Fame star. It was someone who I knew, so I just paid for it.
No, and I didn't know you had to pay for those.
Yes, Jeff. It's a marketing ploy. It's a marketing ploy. I think it's like $10,000.
You know what? Follow the money. You'll figure it out.
There's always going to be money somewhere.
So now that I finally get.
Now you finally get how the Walk of Fame works.
Yeah, man. I never thought about that. What are some of the other discoveries that you could talk about? Like the Walk of Fame is a marketing game, really.
Oh, gosh.
Without hurting anybody.
No, I mean, I think once you realize that a lot of things are businesses, okay,
correct.
You have to make money to pay people to do these things that we love. And I know there are a lot of people who have issues with that, like when it comes to churches and that sort of thing.
Church, that's what I was thinking.
And, but you have a massive, like, let's just say you have XYZ massive facility with 500 people on staff because 20,000 people come to church there every Sunday. Like, that has to be supported some kind of way.
That's right.
I think that if you just accept that that's the way things are, and it doesn't necessarily take away from it, everyone
you have to bring in money to do good, right?
Well,
100%. And it's the same with the future of business. But what you said was pretty much everything is business.
It has to be. If someone's going to spend time, people are chasing a livelihood, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because, great things come out of someone who's like, I bet I could monetize this. Asterisk here. A lot of great things go bad because the same people think I can make money off of this.
That's right.
But I just sort of think that's the way that it works. It makes new industries come around. Yeah. I know there's a lot of talk right now about AI and replacing jobs and everything else, like, I really don't believe things are going to be replaced. I think there's always going to be a need for the human side of things,
the prompt,
because it doesn't happen so fast. I just think of things that we don't have anymore, like a milkman that comes to your door anymore. I mean, there were probably millions of milkmen because they did that.
Probably were.
Well, then as that happened, like, the milkmen retired, like, they aged out. And so you didn't all of a sudden say, all right, guys, and I'm sure some of them it would have had to happen too, but it's not like, all right, no more milkmen today. We're going to sell milk in stores. No, like, that's a gradual thing that sort of happens.
That's a great example.
I also think, and this will mean a lot for people that live down here, especially in Lafayette. I find when I work with people, there's a feeling sometimes of feeling trapped, like you can see all four walls, and I can totally sympathize with that. It's a big little town. I mean, especially if you have your circle of friends, you're going to know your people, and yes, you can see all four corners and all four walls. But I will say one of the biggest points of success that I've had is really taking my Louisiana on the road. It's not something that I'm embarrassed about. It's something that I think we take for granted, that people are like, oh my gosh, the culture down here is so great. Southern hospitality is just like an extra level down here. I mean, they might think that it's Mardi Gras every day and we have to hopscotch over alligators to get to work every day, but invite them down here. Show them things. Show them even businesses that are booming. And sometimes I push business leaders in this area to talk more about what they do, because it's also a culture thing too, to be really humble about whatever you're doing.
Sure.
When I say take my Louisiana on the road, there was a big company we were trying to get into. They work in the EV space, very well known. The company I was working for could not get a meeting, wanted to handle some business for them, could not get a meeting, because in tech, space is just very limited. There's a lot of vendors coming at you all the time, pitching to you, trade shows, and what you end up finding is that people like what they like, and unless they have a reason to move, they're not going to move. I sent a king cake to their marketing team, and California does not know how to react to something like that, because they don't show up with food at places. It's why we have, I guess, diabetes and high blood pressure down here. But that's like the social lubricant of like, what, I need to talk to you about something. I'm going to show up with donuts from Meshes, and then you're going to have to talk to me, So I send a king cake. The marketing team calls. Now, we weren't doing any business, all right? Marketing team calls to say thanks. And I just said, hey, really like what you guys are doing. I'm sure I tied it back to some sort of campaign that I saw that I really liked. I just said, look, my team over here has been really trying to get in touch with your operations side. And they're like, oh, we can make that happen. And it was like 3 weeks later, deal was done. Meeting happened.
Here we go.
Deal was done. And so if you can take your Louisiana on the road, do it. Like, we do so many good things here. And now sometimes it's to our own detriment because we are so nice. And so the flip side of that is sometimes we don't get rid of people that we need to get rid of because we know them too well or we know their family. And some would say, no, Rob, what's wrong with that? It's however you run your business, but that's just not common other places. If you're not meeting revenue goals or if you're not treating customers right, we just offer so many more chances here, and it's just a part of our culture. That does not exist other places.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
If you are that kind of shining star, I also say, like, the world is super connected. Like, find business. If it doesn't have to be here. We're all super connected. The majority of my clients are not in Louisiana.
Really?
And I work with it perfectly, and they love that the Louisiana kid can't do anything the week of Mardi Gras because I'm going to be at parades with my kids. I no joke. I took a Zoom during one of the daytime parades on actual Mardi Gras day.
Yeah.
I answered it, and I'm at the parade route. I mean, it's just loud and everything else. And the guy's like, I thought all this was over. And I'm like, tomorrow it'll be over. Today it ends. Yeah. Okay, we'll talk to you tomorrow. And so
that's outstanding.
Kind of just figuring out those things, it really works. But again, it's all relationships. People love to buy from people they like. Yep. They will take the phone calls from people they like. Then the other little roadblocks that you have, price and product, all of a sudden take a little bit of a smaller chunk of the pie if they really just love Jeff. And Jeff's so great. And Jeff, sent my daughter a wedding present when she knew she was getting married. Oh, well, we always got to work with Jeff.
Correct.
That's a real thing, and I don't think that we fully appreciate that down here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The theme I'm hearing is intentional relationships.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You are a master at it. So what's next for Kirkpatrick Brands? It's
an interesting time. I think grouping up with other trainers, consultants, and that sort of thing, like that's something that's happening right now. Last week we had a GrowthX conference that happened, and we wanted to start it here because it was just sort of this mix of people who do everything from mental health to HR. Obviously, I'm kind of the sales and marketing person. There's a kind of a social media expert and a traditional advertising way to do things. And then also fulfillment, self-fulfillment. Yeah. Like, how do you make sure that what you're doing every single day is what you're meant to do? Yeah. Because if it's not, you're going to get burnt out. One of my favorite parts about this is it's probably the least content written down in a slide deck that I have. And I just call it 10 sales hacks of 2024. And I change it as the years go, as new things come, or maybe I have a new idea about different ways of doing things. And I just have a headline on every slide and we talk through it. And some are just as easy as, they know why you're there. A lot of times the hardest part about getting out of the car when you have a sales meeting or something is like, oh gosh, I got to go in there and I got to be vulnerable and I am going to come off as desperate and everything else. Like, no, if you just tell yourself they already know that why you're there. Yeah, they know you're there to sell something.
They do, yeah.
And they already took the meeting. So just jump in with what you got.
Yeah.
The other part is you can't really manufacture passion. I can't help a sales team if the people on it are not passionate about what they're selling, because I can't fake it. And you also could be passionate about other things, maybe on the periphery. Maybe you're passionate because of the amount of commission you make. Well, that's something that you can focus your passion on, but you still have to know what you're selling. You still have to believe it, because people see through that all the time. Messaging is, we're constantly being sold to. Right. It's not just billboards and pop-up ads. It's social media and influencers and everything else. And if I see because I've said pool now, and I was working on the pool this morning, wireless pool robots.
Oh yeah.
That's just what the algorithm's given to me right now. But I'm telling you, I have to hide my wallet because I could buy one. I could get in my car and buy one. And I've done no research, but you've just showed me these great videos and I have no choice. You found me and that's new.
Yeah.
It's
that's
new for
beautiful.
us.
I love that.
Yeah.
So at this point, I usually ask for a business tip. You've given about 30.
Okay.
But let's say somebody has been in a career for 20 some odd years and they're thinking about going out on their own as a consultant. What would you tell those people?
So first of all, let's just accept that it's scary for everyone. It doesn't matter how much you have in savings, what situation you have with your relationship. Maybe if you're like me, you have a spouse who can access health insurance. So that's, one part that there's a check box for. So I would just say, take the time and know that it's going to take some time. And also, we live in a world right now where you may not necessarily have to quit your full-time gig to do something on your own. I know a ton of people who maybe just have something on the side. Maybe it's a product and they could sell it at a farmer's market. So they just start doing it on the weekends. And then eventually you see, like, maybe you've built a little bit of a following over a couple months, maybe 5 Saturdays. And you start to see that and you're like, man, this could be something. And you start to do the math. I would also say, gosh, you're making me like pack 10 tips into one, but they're all just flooding into my mind right now. Also, don't let your business idea die in the planning phase.
Amen.
Things die on the vine while we're waiting for it to be perfect. And the truth about so many things in life, it's never going to make financial sense to have a child. It's not. It's crazy. It's never going to make you're never going to have everything as a check box. And sometimes you have to take a leap. Sometimes you have to be a little bit irresponsible with it. I mean, I look at some of these companies that come out of nothing, and when you hear their origin story, it's literally because of one gap in the market that they saw. Right. Can I tell you a quick one real quick?
Yeah.
DHL, all right? DHL, which is a shipping company. They're primarily Europe. They tried to become a shipping company in the United States. It didn't work as well as they want, so primarily in Europe. Okay. The way that they started was that the founders would eat lunch on this hill that overlooked a harbor that had a port, okay? And what they would see is that all of these freight ships would sit out in the water because you had to manually do customs paperwork, manual papers. So they would see a boat have to go from boat to boat. Think about the time. Pulling upside the boat. Someone has to climb up the rope ladder, fill out paperwork, come down to the thing, and they figured out a way to do it electronically before the ship arrived, which is now the global standard.
The only way it's done, yeah.
I mean, we know what's on a ship that's arriving before it leaves the port that it's coming from. We know. Or the ports know. Well, that was the basis of the whole business. Like that's was
incredible.
The gap. And so when you start to look at those things, if you could recognize a gap and come up with some sort of way to solve the solution. We talked to my grandpa a little bit earlier. He would always just have this idea like, you know what, just find the richest person you know and be like, what part of your day do you not like to do?
Oh,
like,
nice.
What part of it? And he's like, so guess what? When you got tired of keeping your own books, well, that's why you have a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't have time in your day to cut your grass. Well, you have a lawn guy. Yeah. And so He would always, and he was probably saying it a little bit tongue in cheek. Just if he was to do it over again, like he would just call up someone and say, like, what part of your life can I make it? And that could be a business. That could be a whole business. I'm gonna have to get you a better light. I think you need about 30 brightness settings or something.
I do, but I'm telling you, here's the lesson. As business owners, entrepreneurs, we need to ask our customers, what is wrong? What don't you like doing, or kind of what don't you like about what we're doing?
100%.
Yeah, and change and evolve and improve.
My favorite department within any company I've worked for. I mean, obviously I like marketing; it's kind of my guys. But there was a department at a company I worked for called Voice of the Customer.
Yeah,
and their
I've heard
entire
of that.
Purpose was to not only follow up on mishaps, those were logged when there was a mishap, but also when someone had a great experience, it would also be sent to the team. So you weren't getting a call just when something went wrong to smooth things over. You were getting a call to sort of pat the company on the back. Oh, wait, we quoted you this much, or we said it was going to take this long. How nice was it that it came in under budget and 2 days early?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
And so you kind of create that loop. Well, then you build people who are just super fans of what you do. So I think all of those things, I probably should just walk around with just like tips and just be like, I don't know what your business is, but this is what you're doing wrong.
Your podcast needs to be Rob's tips.
I've said enough in my years. So I'm going to leave the podcasting to you. I'll come back whenever you want me to. Maybe we could be a little bit more focused, next time, because I feel like we've been all over the place.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you. I mean, it's been great.
When somebody meets you for the first time, how do you leave them different and better just because you engaged with them? You know
what? That's hard because I don't do it intentionally. I don't care if I'm at the tennis courts while my kids are playing tennis. And I only say that because 2 weeks ago, I had like one of the most enlightening conversations with a Lafayette business owner who was telling me the ins and outs of a business that I could have sworn I knew the whole process. I knew the theory of it. I knew why they were adding new locations. I knew where. But then to hear, maybe there's a different area I don't know about. Like I'll tell you, like governmental relations, I can talk and I'd probably be a great lobbyist, but it's just not my nature probably to do something so, not, I say intentionally, but to do something so like I'm working for this company, they're paying me and I could do this.
Yeah.
It just isn't how I really work. If it's a great company, I'm going to talk about you. Yeah. That's just how it works. But, to hear about how maybe there's like a legal regulation or some sort of policy that's blocking a key part of the business, that's kind of the only part that I think, man, I would love to be able to like take this problem this business owner's having and explain it to the right people because they just don't have the words for it.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I also can remember I've worked with a lot of bigwig talent in the past, TV and radio and politicians. I mean, if you ever listened to the radio show, these guys were coming in round robin. And I remembered who treated me like I was the only one standing in front of them and who treated me like I'm just the next person to spread their message and to interview them.
Yep.
And so I try so hard, kind of those wedding presents. I learned a long time ago, you go to every wedding and every funeral. It's a non-negotiable. And if you can't go to one or the other, you better send a card.
That's right.
Because we can all have intentions all day long, but there has to be like some action with that intention. And that's how relationships happen. And I mean, I've kind of reached a point in my life, and I'm not that old, but where I'm like, I've had enough. I don't want any more friends. Like I don't want new traditions. I don't want new friends. I don't want.
Good.
And then guess what happens?
Yeah.
I meet like your producer in here, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this guy's so great. Like we didn't have him. What else is he doing after this? I could get him so. And but that's how it happens. And I think as long as that happens, then it's healthy. People come and people go. It's the same with friends, business partners. Easy come, easy go. Some people you just have forever. And I'm sort of learning what those long-term friendships are like and how there's never going to be a business relationship. If you need a marketing plan or a logo, like don't try to pay me. That's just not how this works. Like,
correct.
Good for you for being my friend. I think when we have that in the back of your head, then, a lot of the issues that other people have, you won't have as many of because you just have a very clean relationship. You do right by everyone because you have no idea what they're going, to become.
Yep.
Life is short, but life is long. And that might be my last tap of the light bulb. Life is short, but life is really long.
Thanks for tuning in to I Finally Get It. For more information about Rob and what he's got going on, visit our show notes. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you're a business owner or entrepreneur and you want to help other business owners and entrepreneurs, please reach out to me at jeff@ifinallygetit.com.